Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. Brothers and sisters, welcome again to another Quran study. God willing, we will be reading from chapter 9, verse 89, ultimatum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. God has prepared for them gardens with flowing streams wherein they abide forever. This is the greatest triumph. The Arabs made up excuses and came to you seeking permission to stay behind. This is indicative of their rejection of God and His messenger. They stay behind. Indeed, those who disbelieve among them have incurred a painful retribution. So from 89, God is actually talking about the true believers, and He says that true believers are eager to strive. And in 88, we read, as for the messenger and those who believe with him, they eagerly strive with their money and their lives. These have deserved all the good things. They are the winners. So God speaks about a group of people, a group of believers actually, who are the winners. And I searched up the word winners where God says this. Yeah, like for example, in chapter 2, verse 4. God speaks about them, about the believers, and he says, 2 4, he says, and they believe in what was revealed to you and in what was revealed before you, and with regards to the hereafter, they are absolutely certain. And God says that these are the winners. And God says in chapter 3, 104, let there be a community of you who invite to what is good, advocate righteousness, and forbid evil. These are the winners. The scale will be set on that day equitably. Those whose weights are heavy will be the winners, in chapter 7, verse 8. And in chapter 9, the same chapter that we're reading right now, in verse 20, God says, those who believe and emigrate and strive in the cause of God with their money and their lives are far greater in rank in the sight of God. These are the winners. And in chapter 71, he says again, the title is The Winners, where it says, the believing men and women are allies of one another. They advocate righteousness and forbid evil. They observe the contemporary salat and give the obligatory zakat, and they obey God and His messengers. These will be showered by God's mercy. God is Almighty, most wise. In again chapter 9, and this is the verse that we have read in 88, as for the messenger and those who believe with him, they eagerly strive with their money and their lives. These have deserved all the good things. They are the winners. In chapter 13, in chapter 20, God in verse 64, it says, let us agree upon one scheme and face them as united front. The winner today will have the upper hand. As for those whose weights are heavy, they will be the winners. So like God is talking about the winners in a lot of verses in the Quran, and these were just some examples. And in most of them, the thing that you see is the ones who are believing in God, in the hereafter, following all the commandments that God has sent, following God and His messenger, and striving in the cause of God. Like these are the ones who are eager to strive. So this is actually for us a very clear understanding of, after having received all these details, a clear understanding of who the winners are. So we as believers, we should strive in the cause of God. And of course, we have learned from the message of the covenant that we don't have to prove ourselves by fighting. He says this clearly, that this is a new era where it is a different type of a way of proving it, right? Because right now we have, for example, the mathematical miracle of the Quran, where you need to understand the miracle, and it is more an intellectual way, basically, right? Like you need to accept these certain things based on this miracle and based on the message that God has sent. You need to relate everything with each other. The reason why I'm saying this is we can clearly see that there are many people who say that they believe in the miracle of 19, but they don't accept the messenger. We see also people who believe in the miracle of 19. They say they believe in the miracle of 19. They say that they believe in the messenger, but they don't believe in certain things that the messenger says, right? They accept some parts and they don't accept some parts. Or people who don't accept the um, the messenger, for example, on how to speak to the messenger or to follow the messenger. They have their own rules or own ideas where they make their own opinion, their gods. So it's very important to follow everything that God has sent through the Quran to become actually the winners. And it's like very clear, right? In the Quran, it's not a guesswork. Like, we don't have to guess certain things. The Quran is so clear, it gives so many examples and explains actually everything that we need to know. So there is no guesswork. And when you read the Quran and when you're truthful towards yourself, and if you are a righteous person and you have a good soul, you would definitely understand. And God promises that the ones who are truthful and righteous and who really want to understand or know the message, God will help them and God will teach them this book. So there are no questions actually. Like, of course, we have some certain questions about the verses that we are reading, and we try to understand them. And in time, we are doing the Quran studies now for a very long time, and we see in every Quran study that we are doing, the questions are being answered with the help of God through the Quran, right? Through the understanding of the Quran. We keep receiving all these answers. MashaAllah. In 90, God says the Arabs made up excuses and came to you seeking permission to stay behind. This is indicative of their rejection of God and His Messenger. They stay behind. Indeed, those who disbelieve among them have incurred a painful retribution. Not to be blamed are those who are weak or ill or do not find anything to offer, so long as they remain devoted to God and His Messenger. The righteous among them shall not be blamed. God is forgiver, most wise. We see one of the things that we notice here is that God specifically uses the word Arab, right? He says the Arabs made up excuses. Like, who else could be next to the messenger, next to Muhammad when war came, right? Most of them are the Arabs. So why would God specifically mention um, the name of the Arabs? Um, so, and we can see the reason why after a few verses, of course, but God tells them that they just wanted permission not to go fight, and they found these excuses telling certain things. And we read about this same topic a few verses back. These people, they are actually hypocrites. They say that they believe, but in reality, they don't. So when a certain thing, like when war comes to them, they immediately try to find these excuses, right? Because if you are a believer, if you are a true believer, and the messenger tells you that God commands you to go to war and fight those who are fighting against you, then you should like immediately submit, right? You need to say, okay, if this is what God wants, I submit totally to His commandment, and then do what God says you to do. But instead, these Arabs, they were making excuses up because, and actually, this showed their true identities, right? They were actually exposed, and we see this throughout the whole Quran. God has a certain system where He exposes the true identities of people. Some of them are being exposed with war, for example, some others by debating, discussions, or some of them by not willing to spend in the cause of God, some of them not accepting an idea. We could also see this with the Messenger of the Covenant, where there's were some certain people, they just didn't accept this idea about, for example, the age of 40. People who die before the age of 40, they all go to heaven. Certain people who accepted the messenger of the covenant as the messenger, they accepted the miracle of 19. They accepted all of this, but when it came to accepting that everyone before the age of 40 dies, they were stuck there. um, you have also other people having difficulties about accepting that God has sent us the information about the end of the world that will happen in 2280. People just didn't like it, right? And the messenger speaks about this topic as well. So that made them, fall from the list of believers. And but these are just, ways and systems that God makes and creates, so the believers and the non-believers and the hypocrites can be distinguished from each other. And this is an important topic actually, because like, because this shows actually how we need to react to certain people. This shows how either we befriend them or we don't befriend them, right? Because befriending a hypocrite or befriending a liar can be very dangerous. And I'm not talking about dangers for our lives, for our body, for this world, but actually and mostly for our hereafter. Like, we need to save our souls. So befriending hypocrites and liars is very dangerous, and in the end you will lose your soul, because God warns us about this, right? We need to run for our lives, because if we don't do that and we keep them as our friends, for example, God says that we will be like them if we don't do that. So here we see a certain group of Arabs that made excuses not to go and to stay behind. And God says in 91, not to be blamed are those who are weak or ill or do not find anything to offer, so long as they remain devoted to God and His messenger. The righteous among them shall not be blamed. God is forgiving, most merciful. And of course, God knows exactly who deserves what, and God knows exactly what is in the minds of everyone, right? So if certain people have a real excuse, like if they really can't fight and they don't have the means to fight, but they are actually eager to do that, to fight in the cause of God, but they can't yet. Those are excused, of course. 92. Also, excused are those who come to you wishing to be included with you, but you tell them, I do not have anything to carry you on. Then they turn back with tears in their eyes, genuinely saddened that they could not afford to contribute. So imagine, like, this is at the moment is really happening, right? The messenger and the believers who are with the messenger are preparing for a war, and they are eager to fight in the cause of God. They are doing all these things. Then you have certain people, a group of people who are coming to you and saying that they have certain excuses, and these are like the real liars. Then you have the other part group who really want to come, but they don't just have the ability to go, right? Maybe they don't have horses, or there's just something that they can't go, but they're really eager to do. And God tells here, right, to us, He said, but you tell them, I do not have anything to carry you on. Then they then turn back with tears in their eyes, generally saddened that they could not afford to contribute. Like, you see, this is the exact opposite of the other Arabs who find these excuses. And so, like, you can easily see who are the winners here, right? Like, one group who finds excuses not to fight in the cause or to strive in the cause of God, and the other part, even if they can't do anything, they are just so eager to do something, but they just have the means to do this, and God excuses them. 93. The blame is on those who ask your permission to stay behind, even though they have no excuse. They have chosen to be with the sedentary. Consequently, God has sealed their hearts, and thus they do not attain any knowledge. Since they don't have a righteous soul, they are not righteous. Since they are not good people, God says that He has sealed their hearts. It's sealed, so it can't be opened, and they are not open to this mercy and to the truth that God has sent, because they don't deserve it, and God knows exactly who deserve what. 94. Hard times serve to expose the hypocrites. Um, and this was what I mentioned before. It's actually to expose the hypocrites, the true identity in people. It says, they apologize to you when you return to them from battle. Say, do not apologize, we no longer trust you. God has informed us about you. God will see your works, and so will the messenger. Then you will be returned to the knower of all secrets and declarations. Then He will inform you of everything you had done. So when the believers went to war and they came back, of course, they had won the war, and these people, who found these excuses not to go, and then you know, God says, say, do not apologize. We no longer trust you, because God has exposed them. God has exposed that these are like liars and hypocrites. And they say this to them. God has informed us about you. God gave this information about them. So imagine you going to war, and then people behind you, they are living in the same city, and you're fighting. Also, actually, you know, they are also being protected by you, because you are the ones who are fighting. Um, so, and then you come back, and then, you know, they're just saying, oh, we are so sorry, we just had this and that, you know, find these excuses about it. And God says what the believers should do at that moment. And He says, they will swear by God to you when you return to them, that you may disregard them. Do disregard them. They are polluted, and their destiny is hell, as a requital for the sins they have earned. So at that moment, God is giving information about this group of people, because, you know, they have shown their true identity. It's been proven that these people are hypocrites, and, you know, we know from the Quran that the hypocrites go to the lowest pit of hell. They swear to you that you may pardon them. Even if you pardon them, God does not pardon such wicked people. So God says to the Prophet, like, even if you pardon them, I am not going to pardon them. This is also a good example from the Quran, to show to the Sunni Muslims, or any person who says that he's a Muslim and who believes that Muhammad is going to intercede on behalf of them, right? That he can't actually. And this is a good example where God says, like, even if you pardon them or forgive them, God is not going to do that. The Arabs. The Arabs are the worst in disbelief and hypocrisy, and the most likely to ignore the laws that God has revealed to his messenger. God is omniscient, most wise. Some Arabs consider their spending in the cause of God to be a loss, and even wait in anticipation that a disaster may hit you. It is they who will incur the worst disaster. God is here, omniscient. Yeah, so every time when I read this verse, I'm thinking of like the Ramadan, in the Ramadan, right? These Arabs, they come together, and you would go to the mosque where they are reciting the Quran, right, while doing the prayer, which is truly not from the Quran, right? The prayer that they are doing in the month of Ramadan. And you have these mosques where people speak where people speak Arabic. They understand when you recite the Quran in Arabic, they truly understand what it says, right? Because it's their language. So, you know, I always imagine this thing about these Arabs, specifically in the month of Ramadan, where, you know, a lot of Arabs are in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, and they are praying there. And the Imam is reciting this verse where it says the Arabs are the worst in disbelief and hypocrisy. You know, like, and in a lot of translations, they changed the word Arab into the how do you call it? You have these people who are in the desert. The Bedouins, yeah. So when they translate this verse, when the word Arabs, they don't use the word Arab, they use the word Bedouin. And, you know, this shows actually also the hypocrisy. They know that God says certain things about them, but, you know, like, they're finding these ways to ignore, but the truth prevails. And this is the truth, that the Arabs are the worst in disbelief and hypocrisy. The messenger also speaks about this, right? And he says, like, is there any Arab among us? There won't be any Arab believer. Mm, None of the Arabs can become submitters, actually, because, and I don't know either. You know, I never saw someone who says that he's an Arab and still and became a submitter. I didn't heard anyone saying this. It says some Arabs consider their spending in the cause of God to be a loss. So this also shows their disbelief, right? Even if they say that they believe, but if you think that spending in the cause of God is a loss, well, yeah, then, you know, you are definitely not a believer. The other part is, he says, even wait in anticipation that a disaster may hit you. Can you imagine you are with a certain group of people, and then they find excuses not to go to war, and they are just in anticipation. They're waiting for a disaster that it will hit you. But God says that it is they who will incur the worst disaster. God is here most omniscient. Other Arabs do believe in God in the last day and consider their spending to be a means towards God and a means of supporting the messenger. Indeed, it will bring them nearer. God will admit them into his mercy. God is forgiver, most merciful. So again, you have at the time, you had also these group of Arabs that were true believers. They were helping the messenger. They were eager to fight. They were fighting in the cause of God, and they proved their belief, right? They proved that they were real believers. And you see this in very difficult times, right? The true identity of people come mostly in these difficult times. As for the early vanguards who immigrated, Muhajirin, and the supporters who gave them refuge, Ansar, and those who followed them in righteousness, God is pleased with them and they are pleased with Him. He has prepared for them gardens with flowing streams, wherein they abide forever. This is the greatest triumph. So this verse is being used like mostly to um, when you take the verses of the Quran out of context, then it's very easy to idolize these certain group of people, the Muhajirin and the Ansar, and we see this especially in the Sunni world and also the Shia world, where they are just idolizing them and giving these verses in the Quran as example, where God says, those who follow them in righteousness, God is pleased with them and they are pleased with Him. He has prepared for them gardens with flowing stream. So, and they make up these stories about the Sahabas, the companions of the Prophet, that all of them are going to end up in heaven, and there is a certain group of companions, and they have their names. They have all reached a level where they will go to heaven. From this verse in the Quran, we understand, of course, also looking at the context of the whole situation, you have, the things that we have read until now. There is war going on. You have certain people who find excuses, but you have other people who are really true believers. They are next to the Prophet, they are helping him, and they are going to fight, or they're fighting with him in the cause of God. They have proven with their lives and with their money, they have proven their belief, right? So God sends these verses, like these revelations, to the Prophet, telling him that these certain group of people who have proved themselves as true believers, that God is pleased with him, right? So this is actually, this is really amazing, right? Imagine you are there and you proved that you went with the messenger, you did the fighting, and you were eager to fight and to follow the commandment of God, and in the end you receive this revelation from God, that God says the Muhajirin and the Ansar, those who followed him, those who followed the messenger, and they were righteous, and they, did everything possible in their power to strive in the cause of God, that God is pleased with them and they are pleased with him. And he says he has prepared for them gardens with flowing streams wherein they abide forever. So actually, this verse is a is a gift, for those people. These people are still alive. They are alive at that moment, and they're receiving this revelation where God speaks through the prophet to them, and he says, like, God is pleased with you, and you are pleased with him, and God has prepared for them, for you guys, like for the ones who were righteous and did everything, to follow this commandment of God, gardens with flowing stream, the heaven. So it should be very amazing, right, for those people. And compare this with the other group of people who found these excuses and they didn't follow, and they had this, like, those people chose this worldly life. So this one group chose the worldly life, and the other group chose not this world. They chose the hereafter. They chose to be righteous. They chose to follow the messenger, and they chose to give their lives for God. And when you do that, yeah, then you become the winner. 101. Retribution doubled for the hypocrites. Among the Arabs around you, there are hypocrites. Also, among the city dwellers, there are those who are accustomed to hypocrisy. You do not know them, but we know them. We will double the retribution for them. Then they end up committed to a terrible retribution. There are others who have confessed their sins. They have mixed good deeds with bad deeds. God will redeem them, for God is forgiver, most merciful. So we know, of course, from the Quran again, we know that the hypocrites, they will go to the lowest pit of hell. And here God tells us that the hypocrites, they will get the double retribution. Like imagine you're getting retribution, but these ones, they're going to get a double retribution. And after, these verses are all part of the same context, right? God is telling us things that are happened, and he's explaining why these people are hypocrites, and showing their true identities, their hypocrisy. And one of the things I found very important, it says there are those who are accustomed to hypocrisy. Like it's like that you are lying, right? Like that you're trying to trick the people. You say that you believe, but you don't really believe. You find excuses. You are with the believers. You are amongst them. You want them to believe that you are a believer as well, but in reality you aren't. So you are a very, very bad person. And while you are that person, God is revealing these revelations to the prophet, and the prophet writes down all these revelations, but he tells the people, right? He reads these verses to the people at that moment. So these hypocrites, they also hear these verses, like the verses we have read before about the Muhajirin and the Ansar, the ones who did go to fight and helped, and they were with the messenger, that they deserve to go to heaven. And then God also spoke about the hypocrites, that they are liars and they won't be forgiven. Even if the prophet would pardon them, God says, I am not going to pardon them. And then he says here that among the Arabs around you, there are hypocrites. Also among the city dwellers, there are those who are accustomed to hypocrisy. You do not know them, but we know them. God knows them. And the ones who are the hypocrites at that point, like as a human being, when you are lying, you know that you are lying, right? Like even if others don't know, you yourself, you know that you are lying. So when this verse comes, and when you hear this verse, and when you are one of those hypocrites, you know that God is talking about you, right? Let's say, imagine you were able to trick the believers, like trick them by thinking that you are a believer, but God knows your real intentions. But you hearing all these verses, it should actually be very scary for them, right? But yeah, when you are a liar, when you're a hypocrite, when you have this very bad soul and you are like a very bad person, like your eyes and your heart and everything's closed, um like because if you would understand in what type of a difficult situation you are, like can you imagine the moment you're going to die, you are destined for the lowest pit of hell. You're gonna get the double retribution. So like I think that these people, because they are hypocrites and liars, and these are bad people, they don't understand in what kind of a situation they are. They think that they are tricking them, right? They think that they trick the believers, but in reality they trick themselves. They trick their own souls. Because it is not a victory if you end up in hell, right? That's not a victory. It doesn't matter what you have achieved in this world. One day this world is going to end, and then there are only two places where you can go, either to hell or to heaven. There are others who have confessed their sins. They have mixed good deeds with bad deeds. God will redeem them, for God is forgiver, most merciful. Yeah. So, and God speaks here about people who who are confess their sins. They made these mistakes, but they confess it and they are sorry for it. And God tells, you have done some good deeds and bad deeds, and God will redeem them. God says God is forgiver, most merciful. The sentence that we hear, that we read in the Quran most of the times, is in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, right? We read this 114 times throughout the whole Quran. And this is the first verse, like the first sentence that we read when we open the Quran. In the name of God, he's the most gracious and most merciful. So he will forgive, right? If you are sorry and like you repent, and you promise not to do those things anymore, and you're truthful, then God says that he will forgive. Take from their money a charity to purify them and sanctify them and encourage them, for your encouragement reassures them. God is here most omniscient. So you have here this act of giving the money to charity, right? Like you have these people, they made some mistakes, but they are sorry. And God tells the messenger, like, take their money and give it for charity. So, this is an act of showing your repentance, right? Yeah, like you're doing certain things, you're following, at least giving money to charity is a commandment of God. So after confessing your mistakes and you are sorry for it, you start with doing a commandment of God. And this is a way of doing that. So do they not realize that God accepts the repentance of his worshippers and takes the charities, and that God is the Redeemer, most merciful? Say, work righteousness. God will see your work, and so will his messenger and the believers. Ultimately, you will be returned to the knower of all secrets and declarations. Then he will inform you of everything you had done. So you have this people, the group of people, they made some mistakes, they had good deeds and bad deeds, and they are repenting, they are saying sorry. God says, take some money from them to give to charity. Tell them God is most merciful, he's most forgiving. And he says, say, work righteousness, like they need to do these righteous and good deeds like all the other believers. It says, God will see your work, and so will his messenger and the believers. So these people, they are just, showing their true, showing their good intention, let's say, yeah. And God says, ultimately, you will be returned to the knower of all secrets and declarations. So even if you don't declare your sins, God knows everything, right? Then he will inform you of everything you had done. Others are waiting for God's decision. He may punish them or he may redeem them. God is omniscient, most wise. We didn't read the footnote of 101. It says, the hypocrites sit among the believers, listen to the message and proofs, then spread their poisonous doubts. It is a chronic law that they receive double retribution now and forever. And I remember we had in the WhatsApp group where this guy came in and he, start asking questions. I've read the messages afterwards, and like it's really poisonous, the way how they are asking these questions and trying to divide the believers and blaming the believers. And when they come as believers, right? They start saying, they say salam alaikum, like, and then they say that they're the brothers of the sisters and they are believers, and they have these questions, like they're starting to ask questions, but when they ask it, they ask it in a certain way, like that makes you, like you would get these doubts if you don't know the real information about these certain topics, right? But this is their ways of doing it, and God exposes them. You can truly see the qualities of these people, the way how they talk, the way how they walk, the way how they treat you. You can see their character actually. Masjids that oppose God and his messenger. Let me see how many minutes. I hope I'm not 34. 107. Masjids that oppose God and his messenger. There are those who abuse the masjid by practicing idol worship, dividing the believers and providing comfort to those who oppose God and his messenger. They solemnly swear, our intentions are honorable. God bear witness that they are liars. You see, like this is what they say. They solemnly swear, our intentions are honorable. God bears witness that they are liars. God bears witness that they are liars. and they say they solemnly swear our intentions are good. Yeah, you would see this most of the times, right? Like when you speak with these people, and when you oppose them with their hypocrisy, like all of them, at least the ones that I have seen, they all always say that they have these good intentions and God is the judge and God will judge them, etc. They say, oh, God's going to judge me, so God knows that I am a true believer, God knows my intentions. You most of the time see them saying, God knows my intentions, God knows my intentions. I'm not sure if the messenger of the covenant he spoke of, I think he did in one of the voice recordings. He speaks, of course, about the hypocrites and the people, also in the videos. And most of the times, and we can see this, for example, with the one with Edip, that you see it, right? Like they say that their intentions are good and God knows, and they they say that God is their witness, right? And when you read this word, God says God bears witness that they are liars. God is a witness, that's true, but he is a witness that you are liars. So imagine, right? And this verse is about, that you have these masjids. God says that certain people, they abuse the masjid by practicing idol worship. And almost all the masjids throughout the whole world, they are doing the same thing. Like 99.9% of all the masjids, in the masjids, they are practicing the idol worship. And I believe there was a footnote about it, or it says, any masjid where the practices are not devoted absolutely to God alone belongs to Satan, not God. For example, mentioning the names of Abraham, Muhammad, and or Ali in the azan and or the Satan in the salat prayers violates God's commandments in chapter 2, 136, 2, 285, 384, and 72:18. Unfortunately, this is a common idolatrous practice throughout the corrupted Muslim world. All the masjids in today's world, almost all of them, they practice idol worship with the azan, of course, and while they're praying, they mention the names of the prophets, the saints, like the others than God. And God clearly says in these verses that it is prohibited to pray in those masjids. It says also dividing the believers and providing comfort to those who oppose God and his messenger. Like, of course, we have the masjids where it's a building, you can go inside and, you can pray there, and then certain people will come and do the praying, etc. But recently we have also the internet, right? We have these online places like Discord, for example, where the so-called submitters, they, invite certain people there, and these people who are hypocrites, liars, unbelievers, they have these very crazy ideas about, about anything, and then they are just so they can come there and freely speak about all these things. And when I was reading this verse, I also thought about that part. Like it says, practicing idol worship, dividing the believers, and providing comfort to those who oppose God and his messengers. And in these groups, you see like so many people opposing God and his messenger, and they just let them do it. So, and imagine that that place is not an online area, but imagine that it's a masjid, right? So, and God tells us that those places are not God's houses. These are like the houses of the devil. So we need to have certain rules. We need to have certain boundaries where we don't provide comfort to those who oppose God and his messenger. Of course, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't shouldn't discuss certain topics with certain people. It doesn't mean that, but like giving them the opportunity to spread their lies and spread these bad things about their beliefs and their bad ideas, that's something that we definitely shouldn't do. And they solemnly swear our intentions are honorable. Yeah, they always do. 108. Do not pray in those masjids. You shall never pray in such a masjid. A masjid that is established on the basis of righteousness from the first day is more worthy of your praying therein. In it, there are people who love to be purified. God loves those who purify themselves. Like one of the things we really need to distinguish is the Kaaba and the other masjids, because first of all, the Kaaba is a building that is built in the beginning to You know, it's a masjid that is established on the basis of righteousness from the first day when Abraham and his son they built the Kaaba, right? That was the purpose of it. The first building that was devoted to worship to God. So this is different than, because you would have people asking, okay, but you know, the same thing happens in Kaaba, even worse things happen in Kaaba compared to other masjids throughout the whole world, because in Kaaba, like these people, they're worshiping these rocks, you know, the black rock, they're worshiping it. They touch the Kaaba, the stones, and thinking that you know, it will save them or it will have any benefit to them. They think that it has benefits to them. But thinking that a stone or a building, even if your intentions are good, and even, you know, it doesn't matter. Like the act is an idol worship. The thing that they are doing is an idol worship. And God never, nowhere says that you need to touch the Kaaba and touch the black stone. And if you touch it and kiss it, you are going to be like saved, right? Like like when a person reads the Quran from the beginning until the end, like when you read the Quran and you know the topics of religion, you know what God wants, you know His commandments, like God telling us these things in the Quran about people before us and things that are going to happen. Like you have so much information in the Quran, right? when when you read the Quran, you start to have a certain understanding of this world, a certain understanding why we are here, how we need to do, what happened, and you know where to stand. Actually, you get this information from God because the Quran is very clear. It's very simple, and it's very easy to understand. Like these are not secrets, right? God is talking in a certain way and giving us examples. And you know, when you think about all these things, a normal person should like very easily know that you shouldn't think that a black rock is going to help you. Like you shouldn't even think that you're going to go there and then kiss a black rock. Like why would a person who is normal in his mind, if that person is a normal person, like with a normal understanding of certain things, if why would you go and kiss a stone? Right? It doesn't make sense. So this shows actually that a lot of people, most of them actually, first of all, they don't read the Quran, and even if they read it, they don't read it in the language they do understand. And even if they read it in the language they understand, their souls, these are like bad souls, and God is preventing them from understanding it. Because you know, when you have this information that God has sent to you, you have this certain understanding of submission and Quran and why you're in this world. And you know, like you get that thing from the Quran. So you would easily understand that it's wrong to worship a rock. And when you ask them, of course, they're not going to say we are worshiping the rock or we're not worshiping the Kaaba. We are doing this because, you know, when you touch it, and then the hellfire is not going to touch us because my body touched it, etc. A masjid that is established on the basis of righteousness from the first day is more worthy of your praying therein. So, and we had this discussion, of course, before. And, you know, my first idea was like not even to go to these mosques, but we discuss about it. God doesn't say that we should not go there. God says do not pray in those masjids. So we still can go there. We still can go and discuss with people certain topics. We can also, for example, do our ablution there, because you know I thought before that ablution is also a prayer. I thought that that's also a prayer because, you know, I was a Sunni before, and there are certain things that we have learned in the mosque and from our parents. You know, even reading the Quran in Arabic, like, you know, making certain sounds. They have taught us that these are prayers and, you know, good things. You know, ablution is one of those things that you don't do ablution only for prayers, but you just do it because it's also a way of doing praying. But in the Quran, God tells us we need to do the ablution for the prayer, like it's a requirement for the prayer. But we have also these made up things, you have certain people that don't go to sleep or don't go to bed. Before they go to bed, they do their ablution, for example. But the ablution is not meant for that, right? For that purpose. The reason is to do your prayer. But these are all new inventions, right? Um, so you can go to a mosque, and then this mosque that God talks about, you can do your ablution there, if you really need to. But the thing that we can't do is we can't pray the rain. Is one who establishes his building on the basis of referencing God and to gain his approval better, or one who establishes his building on the brink of a crumbled cliff that falls down with him into the fire of hell? God does not guide the transgressing people. Such a building that they have established remains a source of doubt in their hearts until their hearts are stilled. God is omniscient, most wise. So, when you have all these people doing these things, right? For example, building a mosque, you would think it's a righteous thing to build a mosque. And when you ask them, they truly think that they are doing something righteous. They're thinking, okay, I am building a place where a lot of people, they're going to come and they're going to do their prayers. So it's a very good thing to do. But here we read that it doesn't make sense. Like, um, when you end up building a place where people are going to do idol worship, they are going to idolize God, they are going to do all these things that God condemns. God says clearly in chapter 72, verse 18, he says, all the messages belong to God. Do not mention anyone else beside God. Because, mentioning God and remembering God is actually the prayer. Because God says in the Quran, the reason for us to do the salat is to remember God. So when we are doing the salat, we should remember God. And if you remember someone or something else next to God, then, like you have multiple gods because you are remembering it. It's a prayer. So when making this building and doing this idol worship, which God will never, God says clearly in the Quran, He will never forgive idol worship. So that's why it's a blasphemous thing, and it's really dangerous to do something like that. But it is, of course, for us who believe that we cannot go to these mosques, to these masjids, and pray there, because these are the houses of the devil. And we see this also in 107 in the footnote. Any masjid where the practices are not devoted absolutely to God alone belongs to Satan. So we don't want to go to a building and pray in a building that belongs to Satan. God willing, I will end here. If I have made any mistakes, may God forgive me. And if the brothers and sisters have any questions, please go ahead. Sorry, it's now 47 minutes. It was a little bit long.
MashaAllah, brother.
MashaAllah. Thank you, brother. Good story.
MashaAllah.
Thank you. Study. Very good points. I want to speak about a lot of these. Actually, it's interesting that I wasn't even aware that we were going to discuss these verses, as we're preparing for the study. And I was thinking about giving people permission to stay behind, when they made excuses and something happened. And I kept thinking about this verse, like when God says that, why did you give them permission to stay behind? And when he knew, obviously, that, they're not really serious about what they're saying, but still then I guess giving them permission to stay behind is kind of giving them an excuse. Like, oh, I received permission, the messenger said it's okay, for me to stay behind, and using that as additionally as a validation of their excuse. But really, these verses continue to talk about the hypocrites, and mashallah, we learn a lot from these verses about how these people, try to deceive the believers. And also, I think Brother Jaffer gave some good examples, good like real life examples on how some of these people operate and um, how they come with their quote unquote righteous intentions, to deceive people and try to confuse them. And also, uh, God says, it's something I want to talk about. God says um, about the believers here in these verses that we read that the believers they advocate righteousness and forbid evil. And so, but then these hypocrites obviously prohibit righteousness and they advocate evil, right? And we see that, for example, by the fact that every time you advocate righteousness and you forbid evil, like they have a problem with that. They tell you not to do that. For example, like uh, for these people, it's maybe a question about unity or a question about freedom, blah blah blah. It's like no, like people can have these ideas if they want, and why are you telling them this is haram and this is halal? Like, oh, why are you doing that? And I mean, this that's just one of the ways, right? But the idea is that the hypocrites will find a way to not do that. They will do the opposite, um, which is to prohibit righteousness and to advocate evil, all while pretending, as the footnote says, they sit among the believers, they pretend to be believers, then they spread their doubts, like they position and situate themselves, like learn about them, learn about how they want to go about what they want to do, and and then they do it. I mean, it's not like they want to expose themselves, but ultimately God exposes them, right? Their plan is not to be exposed, obviously, because up to them, they would always want to do the damage, divide the believers, um, and just it just reminds me of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, like when uh, when Lot, tried to help these people to try to stop them from the abomination that they were doing. Their response was to evict those people because they wish to be pure. You know, like I mean, if you just think about it, like like they think, oh yeah, like you think you're you think you're better than us, like oh you're so pious, like you know, uh, and so anyways, I mean, um, I see that, I mean, their ways and tactics shift around, but the main strategy that they have, all the hypocrites, they have the same traits and they do the same things, um, uh, and the story just never changes. And of course, God teaches us through these examples every time, subhanAllah, we read them. He allows us to see these verses in different light, mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah, brother. Like I was also reading like these messages that we, in the group we have seen this. Like you can easily recognize the intention, right? Like even
Mm-hmm,
they try to disguise their true intentions behind asking certain questions, right? And
mm-hmm,
you know, this can divide, of course, people who don't have information about certain topics.
mm-hmm,
And mashallah, when you have the information, when you can, After having discussed and after seeing so many hypocrites and liars and people, who you can,
Mm-hmm.
easily see, easily see it coming, that was one of the things I thought about it when I was reading that verse about the hypocrites, the liars. It really
Mm-hmm.
fits in. It's really amazing, yeah. Like, really fits in. You think, you imagine this certain person, or the person that said certain things. That's the first thing that comes to mind. So it
Mm-hmm.
exposes them.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine we couldn't expose them, right? Imagine
Mm-hmm.
because then it becomes very difficult. Then you are with
Mm-hmm.
certain people who are actually hypocrites and who are
Mm-hmm.
very bad people, but you don't know. You think that they are your brothers. You
Mm-hmm.
think that they are these good people.
Mm-hmm.
um, but again, God promises to expose them.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a way, we are also safe, because in the beginning they are not exposed, but it doesn't take a lot of time for them to be exposed with the
Mm-hmm.
will of God.
Yeah, and I mean, what is this? Since we're talking about, I mean, what is this game with the numbers? Like, I'm so sick of it.
Mm,
Mhm.
People still don't understand. Um, you know, the thing about they're just, oh, like, look at us, we're so powerful. I mean, the Quran is filled with examples. We are more powerful than you. We command more respect from the people. You
right
know,
when they told you,
and
yeah,
yeah. So I mean, and despite this being like so obvious, and us talking about it, like they still don't have the basic understanding that, or a little bit of shame to
right.
not acknowledge that,
Yeah, I mean
Yes.
it's amazing, because he's like they're so sly too, and they know what they're doing, and like even for me, I didn't know. I can't recognize some of these things sometimes, but like until after the fact, I think when brother like things got painted clearer, brother Suleiman um had some good things to say and like call it out. But yeah, it's that's what makes him so just repulsive because beating around the bush and stuff, and then after the fact, the guy admits to you, brother, like in private
Mm-hmm.
message, and I mean, like, how could you sit
That
here and
is so funny.
lie to our yeah? How could you sit here and lie to our faces, and then
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something else. Like, why would they even? And then like to cert 26, the most of them pretend to listen, but they don't. They're liars.
Mm-hmm.
They pretend to listen. So the things like we're talking to them about, he's like, "Oh yeah, brother, I'll reflect on it and stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, like interesting." And but and I'm like, but as time goes on, it's like, wait, he's and then the truth finally comes out, like at the end, like
Mm-hmm.
after he gets removed, and yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
they're just snakish, and you
Mm-hmm.
can see, it's another thing that they idolize the whole idea of numbers, and so that's dangerous too. And you can see where their
Mm-hmm.
where their priorities lie. Their priorities
Mm-hmm.
doesn't isn't about following the right path, worshiping God
But
alone, regardless of
showing off.
numbers, and showing right. It's how many numbers. That's the gauge that they use, and by that logic, I mean they're no different than like these mega churches or even many smaller churches. And I mean
Mm-hmm.
I've grew up around seeing these things, and it's the same
Mm-hmm.
things that I'm seeing with
Mm-hmm.
them. I mean, it's just it's yeah, it's just bad.
Yeah, Masha, another thing that comes to my mind is, God talks about the Arabs around the time of Muhammad, and God says they were doing their contact prayers, right? Their prayers were fine. Well, they're doing the prayers the same way. That's why God doesn't teach us in the Quran how to do the contact prayer. And God still says in the Quran, their prayer was nothing more than, getting the people, crowding them out, and repelling people from the path of God by doing that, like you're crowding the people out, but you're setting such a bad example, and you're repelling these people, by this just It's just a show off of hypocrisy. And what do those numbers tell you that you're getting God's victory? I mean, you would get God's victory if you stand by the truth, but you know, if you're praising people who are promoting innovations and inviting people who are false messengers and inviting rabbis who are trying to convert submitters while also claiming to be messengers, and then you're including them in your numbers, and then you're saying that we have big numbers, like it doesn't mean anything, you know? And there's complete chaos, you know? I mean, the idea, I mean, not really even supposed to do that, you know? Like, look at the messenger of the covenant and look at the audios we have from their Quranic studies. You know, you are there to study the Quran yourself among submitters to read Quran. Like, we don't see all this, um, you know, like all these people trying to pull stunts in front of people to try to impress others. You know, saying that they're using them as props. The messenger could have a lot of props. You know, bring people as props. Bring any
Yeah,
atheist and disbeliever in the Quranic studies,
right.
and do that. You
He'll
know.
just talk about them, like he'll read about them or
Mm-hmm.
examples he runs into. He doesn't need to invite
Mm-hmm.
these Satanists, essentially what they
Mm-hmm.
are, to his
Well.
studies. You know, these he said, look, I read him. He talks about Joseph Smith. He doesn't need to come invite Mormons and Jehovah Witnesses and have
Mm-hmm.
them spread their satanic
Yeah.
ideas, to people who could be very new
Mm-hmm.
submitters, and then they get
Mm-hmm.
converted to what this satanic,
Mm-hmm.
Judaism, following the Talmud type. I mean, all kind of stuff. The way, I mean, this type of stuff, like you don't see any of that.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, and yeah, they're counting them in their numbers. It's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then
Like
yesterday I had
it's
a conversation with this person who left. You know. Now we were having the discussion about mathematical miracle, right? Someone who's intentionally playing with the miracle. Like it's not like unintentional because I've given him the benefit of the doubt. Like we've talked to him about this stuff, and he repeatedly is doing that, like knowingly. And so it was supposed to be corrected, right? So I mean, it was corrected, and then the same person who talks about no, we shouldn't be divided, ends up uh, leaving that WhatsApp group, and saying like, I don't like division. I was like, isn't that dividing? Like, aren't you just leaving? It's like,
mm,
no, but we should stick to the Quran. And I said, okay, well, are you the one who defines like what's Quranic and what's not Quranic? Like you say, yeah, we should only stick to the Quran, but then you can say what's Quranic and what's not, and we can't say that. It's like not doesn't it's not we can't have double standard either. And the fact that for example, like if someone was to talk about division, and especially for I mean, I don't want to hijack from the topic of the study either. But if someone wants to talk about division, they should think about, um, first of all, that my prayer alarm is going off. One second. So, like the submission app, for example, was the first platform that was there online for people to have Quranic studies online, right? So it's not like we were another platform and then I or someone else among us or a group of us decided that, no, what, we're not going to be with their group and let's have our own group. But it was the other way around.
right, as if they had
So I was
reservations.
yeah,
Right,
they had reservation. They decided
they had
never to join
reservations.
us,
Yeah,
and they created their own group. And then they start pointing fingers. Look, you're not joining our group. You guys
right,
think that you're better than us. You guys are dividers. And it's not like we didn't try to join their group.
right. I
We
went
joined their
there
group, and we
twice
saw
over
all
the
the
past.
chaos and all the nonsense,
Yeah, I left. I
and
was
not
very
sticking to the
repulsed.
platform and all the
Yeah,
innovations. Exactly.
yeah.
So like this guy who left. Now when he was inviting me privately to their group, I talked to him about all these things about circumcision that they're still proclaiming. on their website. He's like, but he's telling me that he doesn't believe in that anymore, which is false. He believes in the circumcision stuff. The person who is part of running that group, and Peter, and he has spread lies about us. Specifically, he made lies about me, saying that submission app, about the CIA and all that stuff, and and then I tell him that no, the articles are still there on his website. And instead of saying that he would talk to him to remove the articles, or discuss that with us or with them, he's saying, Peter is so much better than you. He said, he doesn't like he doesn't mind being challenged, or he's brave enough or something something like that. He said some stupid stuff. And I said, look, I said, if you really cared about the truth, you know, you would be talking about this, and you'd be more concerned about that rather than praising him, you know. And
Yeah, he
but
idolizes
that
him.
just
It's just
yeah, and
kind of
and yeah,
cringy and disgusting.
exactly, you know. And
Like,
how could you do that if you really are a true believer and you see the lies being spread about submission,
yeah, and
about
if wait, nigga, this guy Misha said he doesn't believe in circumcision.
no, I'm talking about the other guy
The other guy. So
who
okay, so he claims he
yeah,
doesn't believe in circumcision, the Raju guy, and then now
yeah,
he doesn't want to challenge it to Peter. Instead,
hmm,
he's defending this
Peter and
guy.
praising him, yeah,
Okay, yeah, okay, that,
you know,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the same guy that was lying
hmm,
and then beating around the bush and then did it
yeah,
after. I mean, you
and
can't
then
trust anything that they say.
hmm, yeah, I mean, and I know these people, honestly, like I obviously
That's
also
good.
don't
I mean,
run a
mashallah, like you give him the benefit of the doubt and stuff. You had him
hmm,
in, and he just
yeah,
ends
I've
up.
known him for many years, but I never had a very close encounter to this point. Like obviously, like people will deceive you. There's always a point of exposure, and so I know him for many years, and he always comes on the sidelines like that, and tries to take people with him. Like I think previously he tried to take other people with him. Um, and so, anyways, like, but I think like a lot of people, and I'll say that without hesitation, a lot of people uh, that are, going online, and we see them, for example, doing things, apparently, some of it feels like it's in the cause of God, right? But then God knows their intentions. Some of it may be in the cause of God. For the hypocrites, it's not. For the hypocrites, God says they're showing off, you know. So we shouldn't be impressed by these people, and we should certainly not be impressed by their numbers. And eventually on the day of judgment, God will show to us, that who was actually striving in the cause of God, and who was doing that as a show off, you know, because if you really cared about submission, you cannot you cannot stand to promote all of the falsehood, right? Or even if you don't believe it yourself, which is worse, you still invite those people in, let them, and not even that, like they're actually friends with them. Like those people told me, like the rabbis, they told me, oh, like Peter and I are friends. I'm like, how is that possible? And he's a fake messenger. He was a submitter. He's a fake messenger, and they know him. They know he's a fake messenger. They come and talk down to him and everything too. But then they allow him to convert people like me, who just come like unknowingly, And then they say, no, these
I'm
people are not
sorry.
a threat,
Yeah.
because imagine that guy, for example, knows Arabic. He knows about the mathematical
He could be
miracle.
very convincing for somebody that
Yeah,
doesn't know
and
better.
so it's just no, nobody takes him seriously. He said,
How do they know that? How do they know that?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
For
even
them,
if
for them.
nobody takes him seriously, one person or two people, who knows, someday will take him seriously, and
Yeah.
who's responsible, So the thing is, when you're boasting about your numbers, and you're boasting about how popular your Quran study is, think about how many people you have repelled. Think about how many people were repulsed from the mathematical miracle by these people who said, "Oh, I know about this, but this is just you're just fudging the numbers,
right.
right?"
Or somebody
And
gets
then,
converted, and then you
hmm
carry the weight of those sins because you harbored these enemies of God, and
hmm
allowed them to spread their,
yeah,
um,
and
you know,
and then some of these people feel that they became submitters, let's say, because they got into these groups, and now they're indebted for their whole lives to be part of this group. Like, for example, some people came into submission. We all had our journeys, right? Like, for example, someone or a lot of someone came into submission by first finding out about a deep, or finding out about another person who was with the messenger, but they're hypocrites now. They're not joining their Quran studies just because that's how they found submission, right? I mean, they moved on. God showed them, and they continued forward, right? So there are people like that. So I mean, even if people are becoming submitters, like, I'm sure Adib is not going to get credit, for Brother Jaffer being a submitter now, right? Or my wife being a submitter, this Arab, this Middle Eastern guy, Sabah al-Mansur, who was ridiculing Rashad and calling him a disbeliever. He doesn't get any credit he gets discredit for repelling people from submission by setting the worst example and saying falsehood and misleading those people who could be potentially guided towards the right
God
path,
causes their scheme to backfire.
yeah. And when you spread these types of ideas, you tell people, for example, bad things about our group. How did these people hear these things? From these people who joined these studies. This is what they taught them about us, and then they come and say these things. Of course, they repel them from the right path by doing that. So it's not a service to submission. It's they're repelling people from submission. Anyways, didn't mean to uh go more off topic. um you guys have more
Yeah, it's not off
questions
topic.
about
It
the
is.
verses?
It's
Yeah,
also part of what we
right.
read.
Mm-hmm. Right. Give me it crushed. Oh no.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I think I know, brother Solomon. I know about that other group you are speaking about. The you said the other guy, he changed his views. So what I understood, because I know some people from their group, and they change their some little bit, the position as far I understood, but still they do not, uh, completely disregard the circumcision. What they come to the conclusion now, like they are saying, they wanted to say, okay, circumcision is not in the religion of Abraham, so this is not for the submission, but maybe God authorized for the Jewish or for the other people. So why you are going to say anything about these things? Maybe God authorized for them. So this kind of position now they came, they are coming from the other side. So I was saying no, because God does not advocate sin. So, and as per the Quran, we have to take a firm stand.
Mm-hmm.
God cannot say this even for them. So why you are going now? So this is a kind of, you compromise, then we can compromise. Something like that, they change the views,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But still, in their heart, I know that that person was, promoting, because I joined couple of studies there, so a couple of times, and I was also, asking about so many things, and he was little bit upset about me because I was so discouraging. I directly said to them, He says satanic, So they said, oh, you cannot say satanic, something like that. I said, no, because who said, if this is not from the Quran, if this is not from the God, so obviously it's from Satan. But they do not like. They said, no, it's too much for them. So that's why,
Mm.
So now they
That
changed
makes
their
Satan upset.
something like that. I was, whenever I said, I steadily, say, no, it's from, if this is not from the Quran, so obviously it's from whom? So you just make, you tell me.
Yeah, you
They do
don't want
not,
to hurt Satan's feelings.
yeah.
Exactly.
That's what they
Exactly.
want to do.
Yeah, so they are coming now other point. Oh, okay, this is not in the submission, but so again there is a but. So that's like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
that's like, so, and some one person is saying, no, I cannot say directly, no, it's not authorized from God. I said, why you are afraid to say that? He said, because it's in the so many times in the Bible or I said, who told you to read all those things, Bible or
Hmm.
all? You see, you just read in the Quran. Nothing is there. So why you cannot take pharmacy? It's not from authorized. He said, no, I afraid God. I cannot say like that. No. Oh my God! You see, I say, oh my God!
Yeah, he's basically,
This kind of
it's like he's trying to act so righteous, brother, and making you seem like, oh, I reverence God and I'm not taking, when in fact he's doing the same thing. He's not taking a firm stand, and he's actually siding with idolatry. It's like, like someone saying like, oh, well, I can't say, like, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean,
It's
it's
because
so
they're
bad.
hypocrites. It's because they're hypocrites, and it's because they have doubts in their hearts, right?
Yes, yeah, this is a kind of compromising, So
This is
you
a doubt.
compromise that I can go compromise. So
Hmm.
then we can be
Right.
equal, something like. So they
Hmm.
came from the
Right.
other side now. Oh, it's not from in the submission, but is somewhere. So why you are
Hmm.
just so
Hmm.
upset about those things, circumcision? I said, no, I am so strict. I cannot believe.
Yeah, the
And
funniest
they,
thing
I
I
said,
heard.
I do not believe. You have to take a stand. You cannot believe. It's
uh,
not from authorized from God. That's the main thing. If you said it's authorized from God, so I'm not with you. I am not. This is my fine. It's something like that. I was,
Hmm.
too straight about those things.
so, yeah,
Yeah, I
they
mean
don't
the
believe the
funniest thing.
Quran alone. Uh, I'm sorry.
No, he's fine. I was just saying the funniest thing I heard, which doesn't make any sense, was like this one person, he Turkish. He told me, he said it's not a religious commandment. He says it was a tradition given to Abraham. What does that mean?
Yeah. So
Like,
this
what if you
kind of
get a
thing.
what if you get a tradition of chopping off like your kid's fingers at the eve of every
Yeah,
first
yeah,
every five
yeah, but I
years? Oh
mean,
no, it's just a tradition, brother. It's okay. It's just a little ceremony we do.
yeah,
No
but
big
what
deal.
kind like it was like a cultural tradition? Like God gives you cultural tradition? What does that
Right?
mean?
Yeah.
It's still.
Yeah. No, it's religious in nature. He's completely
Yeah,
wrong.
but I mean, it shows that these people are completely misguided.
Yeah.
They have no understanding from the Quran, and I don't know. It's jealousy, it's ego. Like they don't have a stand. They don't have a leg to stand on, right? Like
Yeah.
these were the same people before who were saying no, it was a commandment given to Abraham, and now they're saying no, it's not a
You see
commandment
that?
given to Abraham. It's
That
a
just
tradition
proves
given to
that.
Abraham.
Yeah. That proves what, mashallah, that actually exposes them that they don't really believe in the Quran alone, and they don't believe that the Quran, one of the reasons why it was sent. I mean, it's a perfect book. It dispels, it confirms the truth from the previous scriptures, worshiping God alone, and exposes all the falsehood, and the satanic ideas. And we had a God's messenger, of the covenant, that came to clarify these matters for us. And Quran is all we need, So they're, it's like they're establishing like a, I think it's in Surah 9. They're establishing a building on the brink of a crumbling cliff. They're
Hmm.
not solidified with the Quran alone foundation. They're jumping around to other sources and stuff that have been
Hmm.
polluted, and and they're satisfied with that. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate because they have like
Yeah.
they have the miracle, they have the messenger that tells them, very plain terms, and really, I mean, it's very like simple. You don't how God has made the religion for us and to understand it. Like you don't deviate. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
from these into other sources. I mean, it's I don't know
Yeah,
why
and
these people can't
they've
understand.
also, hmm and they've also done. They're going further. Like I think we talked about it before. They also invented, an innovation about the prayer times. They're the first group, you know, of quote unquote Muslims, that have created, their own afternoon prayer time, even different from the Shias and Sunnis, okay, and submitters. They've created their own afternoon prayer time.
Maybe they want to be special or something.
Right.
They want,
They are, yeah, very special.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, they'll have a very special place in hell if they don't stop with
Yeah.
these actions. That's how they should think about these
Yeah.
things instead of uh, they should reverence God and
Hmm.
not just do these things so lightly and
Hmm.
not reflect on them. I mean, they shouldn't
Right.
even in the first place either. But
Right.
they're
Like, hmm
yeah.
go ahead.
No, 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 brother. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, it reminds me of, for example, when the Messenger of the Covenant talks about the Qibla, he talks about the people of the Isna, they changed their Qibla just out of jealousy from the Messenger. He said, no, they pray this way, so we need to change it, and then they changed it towards the shortest um, path of flight based on the shape of the earth instead of the direction, you know? Just because they found out that the Messenger of the Covenant was doing it this way, they decided to have a different Qibla.
Brother, I had a question about
Uh-huh.
the part where we read these verses where
Mm-hmm.
you have this certain group of people finding excuses not to strive in the cause of God, and in that specific situation it talks about war, right?
Mm-hmm.
But fighting in the cause of God doesn't necessarily mean only to go and go
Mm-hmm.
into a war and
Mm-hmm.
fight with arrows and that kind of stuff. So, from our understanding of the Quran, fighting in the cause of God is actually also a good example. One of the best examples is actually the Messenger of the Covenant, where he did certain things to right. He was fighting in the cause of God, doing all these things that he was doing, right? With
Mm-hmm.
things that he wrote, the videos, that type of things. Um, so this means actually that if we as believers have certain excuses, because since we are not fighting, right? We are not fighting in a war, but if we find excuses not to do certain things in the cause of God, doesn't this also put us in the same place as people who found these excuses not to go to war? I don't know if my question is
Mm-hmm.
clear, but
Right. I
you understand
mean,
what I mean? Like,
so
like war
yeah.
or no war, both are
Mm-hmm.
fighting in the cause of God, and then like we also shouldn't have any excuse not to do certain things, right? Not to go, not to do certain things in the cause of God, and if we have, then like that puts in the same situation as those people who are like having these
Mm-hmm.
excuses,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, I mean,
they are exposed.
if someone is seeking excuses not to strive in the cause of God, right, and they are
Mhm.
not striving in the cause of God,
Mhm.
then they're doing it wrong, right? But it's different. Let's say if someone wants to strive in the cause of God, in one way, like for example, there is the importance of religious education, and God says, "Not all of them shall go," right? So if it's not something like that, but let's say the person doesn't want to strive in the cause of God, and he's just looking for excuses not to strive because it's a hassle, then that's
Mhm.
wrong, right? It's the same thing like the sedentary
Oh,
people who choose to be with the sedentary,
mhm.
that's wrong.
So if we can summarize, let's say someone is very new to submission, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you need to explain to that person what does it mean with all the information that we receive from the Messenger of the Covenant, including the understanding of the Quran today. What does it mean today to strive in the cause of God? Like specifically with examples and like the um, like of today's world. What
Mm-hmm.
should a certain believer do? And I'm talking about real specific things, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to say, okay, I am currently, um, not fighting, but uh, uh, I'm doing
Striving.
certain things in the cause, yes, striving in the cause of God. Like, can you give some examples or explain more into that? Like, so we could have a better understanding of, okay, like, am I in that category? Am I one of those ones who are striving in the cause of God, or am I one of those who are actually finding excuses not to do
Mm-hmm.
certain things?
Yeah, I mean, so anything like that involves money or time or effort, to further the cause of submission can be striving in the cause of God, right? I'm not talking about, for example, like my daily contact prayers and things like that everybody has to do, right? I can't say,
Mm-hmm.
for example, that's striving in the cause of God. Like I joined a weekly Quran study and I'm really striving in the cause of God. Like, no, I mean, you have to do that, but
Mm-hmm.
you go
Mm-hmm.
above and beyond that. You spend your time, you spend money, you make efforts, whatever that effort is, everybody, God has given people different capacities, different circumstances, and they can strive in
Mm-hmm.
whatever way they can, for some people, they can be, good speakers, someone could be a good singer, someone could be a good writer, someone, all these people can use these skills in different ways. Someone may just have a lot of money, that they can just, put in God's cause in some way, build a mosque, print out
Mm-hmm.
literature, distribute, disseminate information on submission. Like anybody can do
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
all these are forms and ways that people can strive in the cause of God.
So we should
Some are,
ask ourselves, okay, what are we doing, right? Like as a individual, or what am I doing to strive in the cause of God? And if I can't find anything, then I need to find something to do, right? To do certain things
yeah.
besides the Quran studies, besides praying, besides giving money
Mm-hmm.
to charity, right? And of course, I understand most of us, and I'm talking about our own group, we are, of course, talking to other people, um, and then trying to explain them and show the evidence, etc. That's something we already do all the time. Like I see that as a part of striving in the cause of God. Like, at least to discuss and to talk with others and to show the evidence and the proof, because the messenger was a good example of doing that, right? He was having all these discussions and was promoting submission. Um, so is that like, and yeah, and I'm thinking, is that even enough? Like, is there like not more that we should do as a group
Yeah, I mean everybody can
or
do it
as
based on
individuals?
their based on whatever they can do. I mean, there's no like minimum, there's no maximum.
Salam alaikum. I had
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm sorry, I had a issue with my
Hmm.
phone. Also, I'm back though.
Did
Uh-huh.
something happen with streaming? No, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still.
Yeah. So I mean, you can
Yeah.
do whatever you want in the cause of God. I mean,
Yeah, I understand, but like to check, like, okay, is there, okay, are we doing that? Because God is speaking about a certain group people that are fighting in the cause of God. You have a certain
hmm
group who find excuses, and then
hmm
like, shouldn't we check ourselves to see, okay, like, where are we at? Are we in which group are we? And we shouldn't
hmm
be like,
Mashallah.
we shouldn't feel safe, right? Like
Yeah, the
most of the
messenger.
times, that's also,
Yeah,
yeah, brother.
yeah. Like even speaking for myself, it's I was been like that's it's very true. We have to be very what's the word um with ourselves. We have to be very harsh on ourselves in a sense, and very severe. I mean, these were also like with the ego and stuff, and we may think we have killed it, you know. Uh, Maybe our companion still needs to catch up or something, but I mean, these are things like you know. Still studying, a lot from the Quran, and then listening to uh, the Quran verses, as and the messenger talk about these things. He's not, of course, he's not talking on his own accord. He's just talking about the verses, and yeah, I mean, I think it's really good to take these looks within ourselves, or if we think we're doing something good or okay, well, we don't think like that, right? Because I think the better mindset, the safer mindset, kind of like you're saying, is to think like, no, we're not doing enough, or or
I
maybe
mean,
I could be
unless
doing
you're really doing enough, then
right, right,
then you.
yeah,
But
Yeah,
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 I
is
mean,
the
if you're
messenger
not
not a
doing
good
enough,
example? Like in the time of the messenger, like they were like very focused on, printing these things out, making these counts, doing these, going to certain places, right? Like they were very actively doing certain things.
they
And
like
when I
mostly
think
the
about
messenger
that,
was doing it. Mostly the messenger was doing it. The other
he
people,
was leading
uh, yeah, the other people were just helping him with the. From what I understood,
cameras
the other
and,
people were
like
just
even the,
no, the other people were just helping him like with the translation, and one person was helping him with the math for on the computer side, and other people were also finding out things, right? But I
Mhm.
think Messenger was still doing most of the work,
Yeah, yeah, but he was
which is not to
clearly
say that we
striding
shouldn't
in the
do it.
cause of God.
I'm just saying like, to give credit where it's due, like Messenger was doing most of the work. It wasn't the
Hmm.
other people. Like they weren't a lot of very good examples from what I see, or a lot of them
Hmm.
that I know, who were there at the time, because all those people are gone, you know,
Hmm.
yeah.
and
Finding
yeah.
ways and stuff to strive to. Like we have examples, like you could print flyers and stuff. That's something
Mm.
that
Yeah,
you know, uh,
yeah, you can
yeah,
print flyers, you can build websites, you can have
I
apps, you can have translations of different languages, you can have conferences, you can have podcasts, you can go to places, give lectures, whatever, presentations, you can do whatever you
Hmm.
want. Like for example, there's no cookie cutter like standard or a solution that we can come up with, right? It's a very personal thing, really, in some ways, because it's based on everybody's personal ability. But let's say if we had a war, and the submitters were under attack, then naturally, we're all required to fight it, in the cause of God, if something like that ever happened. But we're in a different era now. It's about mind games. Of course, when we do stuff like we can coordinate things together, uh, if there is a chance to do that, like pitch in money, or coordinate a plan together, and do all these things. So there's many ideas people can do.
Hmm.
Um, But I guess like everybody can ask that question for themselves, like how much of their lives are they actually spending in doing some
Mhm.
kind of striving that they think that, would help them, to grow their soul and, get the higher
Mhm.
ranks, because the thing is that if someone really wants to strive, God opens the doors for them, God gives them the
Mhm.
means, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So God will give the people the means who want to strive. Of course, we read about people who couldn't strive and they were genuinely saddened with tears in their eyes. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how eager the believers are to want to do stuff in the cause of God. So if they ask
Mhm.
God with that much eagerness, God will give them means to do these things or show
Or
them
he will
ways
pardon them.
to.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm sure, like, if someone wants to strive in the cause of God, even with like $2, let's say, I mean, if their life saving is $2, God knows that that's their life savings.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they will be judged accordingly. Of course, they're very
Yeah,
poor, as long as they didn't choose to be poor and
yeah,
they didn't choose to be sedentary, right?
Mhm. Yeah, because brother, one of the things I was thinking while thinking about this topic is like in my personal life, work is very time consuming and like very like I don't want to end up having that as an excuse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um
on
like
your
that.
off
Oh,
time,
okay. I
yeah,
sorry.
maybe on your off time, like I think about Brother Suleiman, he is. Sorry to laugh, but some
What?
of the things, like,
What?
yeah, like struggling, like we talk often, even when he's overseas, mashallah. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it like I'm not. It inspires me in a way, because like I'm seeing the stuff he's doing and juggling between, a lot of good stuff, and then he's still finding time to do this, and I'm like, okay, like I'm like out here working right now. I need to, uh, uh, find time in between work, after work. I'm just giving you an example of
Mm-hmm.
maybe encourage you or something. But like it was encouraging for me. And then sometimes you're very tired or you're on sleep, but like God will make a way. But like I'm able to do more on my days when I'm not working. I think sometimes in different areas, or uh, but I don't know. I think I don't completely understand the nature of your work. But I guess like the off time you have is when you can, I think,
He
double
doesn't have
down.
any off time.
Yeah, that's it. I don't have it. That's what
He works
Suleiman gets
24/7,
it.
Okay.
Uh,
A lot of people do that. I mean, work 24/7 when you have your own business,
Right.
because
That's true.
there's no limit on how much you can work, but you have
Right.
to set your own hours, and I
Right.
yeah.
guess you can stick to that, right?
Yeah, until a certain time, when you established certain standards in a company, where things have their own standard, it goes on and you have other people doing certain jobs for you, then you will receive, because in the first part of the company there, I had so much time because we weren't doing as much as what we are doing right now. So I had so much free time, so I could use that time to do all these studies and read and translate and etc. Now it's like uh, I see that for example, yesterday I had 4 or 5 meetings with customers, and every meeting was around like 1.5 an hour, 2 hours, and then driving, going back, like doing all this stuff. And then in my mind I'm thinking, okay, like this becomes too much, because now I end up not doing, for example, the translation which I'm working on, right? So then the question is, like, after especially reading this verse, like, is this an excuse for me not to strive in the cause of God? Am I having an excuse for not doing certain things? Should I like totally change change certain things, but I want to, right? I want to do certain things to change it, but then
You can
even that takes
start,
some time.
yeah, you can start small, maybe set aside some time in your calendar, and
Mhm.
make a plan
Mm-hmm.
and go with it, I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
it's you have to set your own priorities, and you have to
Yeah.
set your own time. So if you feel that, you're not doing enough and you want to do more, I mean, then God says, you
Yeah.
carry out your plan,
Hmm.
and you trust
First,
in God. So
I
you
didn't
have to
even
plan it
know.
out. Huh?
Yeah, first I didn't even know that it was like I was not aware. Okay, so now like after thinking, talking, and especially with you, brother, you were telling me, giving me some information about taking these priorities. Then you start to like think of, okay, like what is the difference between a person who's finding excuses not to fight in the cause and you finding other excuses uh, not to do certain things in the cause of God, because there are definitely more things that I could do, for example. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if you are doing I mean, you can also strive in the cause of God with the work that you're doing, right? For example, you're going to work
mhm,
with the intention that you're going to use that money to spend in the cause of God too,
That's
right?
right.
So
Yeah.
mhm.
yeah, so
Yeah, I
that
do.
also, yeah,
Yeah,
so that
God,
can also count towards your striving in the cause of God. So it's not all that gloomy
mm,
if you have to work a lot, but
And there's
you
different
still have
plans.
to find, yeah.
Yeah. Like Brother Suleiman said, like there's a way, like maybe if time or season or whatever in the week you're real busy, you could uh strive in a way with like money or something that is still really good, but it's less. Let's say, um, if you're busy, it allows you to have more, or it's less time allocating, and then when you have, let's say, next week more time or the following days, you can do like something that doesn't, you're spending your time, like for example, the translation. You kind of see like this um different
mhm,
ways.
mhm.
I don't know if I'm making sense there, but uh,
Yeah, like you mean
Yeah,
if you find any moment and then you use that
yeah,
moment
yeah,
like so
but
to
for
and
a
then
time where
start
it's
to
like work
strengthen.
is super busy, like you can like okay, well I can do this little thing and then give to charity or I'm not talking about maybe but whatever it is, and then it's relatively it doesn't take too long. Let's say um and then but it was a good it was um it's a way of striving. And then when you have more time, let's say you go back home on your off days or something, and then you can work on like a translation, or you can work on transcribing audios or something, or any
Mhm,
so like you if that makes sense.
yeah.
mhm.
I guess like if but no,
Start
yeah, I think it's
small.
real good to start small, and then even just say like, okay, I'm gonna do this XYZ for 1 hour, and then it ends up turning into like 3 hours because you get on a roll or something. Like it could be
Mhm,
studying with school or something, or you have to learn some extra training for your work, or
mhm,
just
mhm,
little tricks. Like good tricks. We can do with ourselves and techniques. Uh, but
Inshallah, brother. So definitely we should check ourselves,
motivation.
to see where we're at.
Yeah, yeah, very, yeah, very. I think, yeah, it's very good to, even though it's like not comfortable. I think it's not comfortable for our companion, if they're still lagging behind in the area or something, because they'll be like, no, no, don't look, don't look look at this within yourself, like, no, no, you're fine, or something. But
Mhm,
uh, it's for our own good. Really, it's for our own good.
Mhm.
Um,
And Brother Suleiman, he also mentioned um, just before 2029, when before the smoke happens and before that is the moment when, the ones who truly, um, do certain things, right? Like the ones who really strive in the cause of God can have like a good opportunity to grow their souls. So since it's also very close by now, we are in 2026 almost, so 3 years left. It's not a lot of time actually, 3 years. Yeah. So like this is a good opportunity to use it, right?
yeah,
Maybe
I think
more.
mashallah, I was thinking about that more, like establishing, you know, establishing the, you know, submission, like
Hmm.
the foundation, like with our, uh, with our
The
striving and
community, you mean?
yeah, the community exactly, because there's, I mean, after the victory and stuff, um, like mashallah, brother Suleiman's working on the circumcision book, which is
Hmm.
very good. That's like an
Hmm.
example of establishing, because there's going to be many people
Hmm.
that are going to come in after, and this is going to be the important material for
Hmm.
them. I mean,
Hmm.
even even these Quran studies and stuff too on God Alone TV. These are good. For even like I'll go back and listen to some of our Quran
Mm-hmm.
studies a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll
Yeah.
like hear something. Somebody will say like Brother Suleiman or your brother Jaffer. Like, oh man, it's like very very good.
Yeah. And I think the Turkish studies are also very good, brother. Like,
Hmm.
a good way to strive, and we can also have a conference, maybe, and
Hmm.
and that would be good too.
Yeah, I started also something here in the Netherlands. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people. I've spoken to so many people. And there were last a few days ago, I invited them. Like this guy, he asked himself, like, is there something that I can come or join? And I told him about the Turkish studies, and I said we normally have them, but right now because I was so busy, I didn't have time to do it. But we normally have the Turkish Quran studies, and I also actually invited them to the Friday prayer. They didn't join this week, but like next week, inshallah they will join two of these guys. They were like eager to know and understand. And most of the times, these are the people whom, when you give the information to them, they are just, wide open eyes, very surprised to hear all these things, very surprised that the
Mm-hmm.
things that they were doing is wrong, and not those who are really objecting, Like most of the times, this is what I have seen, the ones who are just listening and then
Mm-hmm.
asking questions to truly understand are the ones who are really interested, like so and we had the discussion we were talking about it before on doing certain things, and because we have spoken about it, we spoke about it. I just invited them, to come to this office place, and then we are having our Friday studies, and then we could talk about it. And then these people there have also these discussions with the other people that they know. And this guy told me, for example, he said, look, they were so angry with me and they wanted to kick me out. And, like I asked them these questions, like, why aren't we doing things according to the Quran, etc. And and then I told them, like, I can even come there and discuss with them the situation and tell them about it, if you don't have the possibility. But yeah, so I think those things really help. But every soul who deserves it accepts it, and if the other souls don't accept it, yeah, then it doesn't work. God knows best.
Yeah, mashallah. Verse. I don't think we covered it today. Uh, but verse 111 is the most profitable investment. About God has bought from the believers their lives and their money in exchange for paradise. Um, Thus they fight in the cause of God, willing to kill and get killed. Such is his truthful pledge in the Torah, the Gospel, Quran, and who fulfills his pledge better than God, you shall rejoice in making such an exchange. This is the greatest triumph. So it really ties into to not being like heavily attached or not really being attached to anything in this world, and that I mean that includes like our materials or we can be grateful and love them, and like the messenger said, like they use them to worship God and remember God every time we look at, like if we like our vehicle or something, or a spouse or friends, or friends meaning brothers, submitters, we can think about, but we should only be attached to God, and uh, not become distracted with these worldly things, because it can happen, and I think another thing, just from what I've observed in my own life, it's really slow. Like it could, I think, the way I'm not claiming to know anything, but like after uh like hard reflection and stuff with things, or like okay, like am I like I'm not doing enough. It's Satan is very will take his time. I think we're being his prime targets and stuff of just, where it's elusive, where you don't notice, right? There's the whole thing where you don't notice these things changing, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, you get these raises, or you're making more money, and then you're not maybe doing as much as you could, or you become preoccupied and distracted with your wealth. But it is something that happens slowly. It's something that, and then you realize, um, like, but that's just what I wanted to share.
Mhm. MashaAllah, bro. I had also the other question about these Arabs, right? So the Messenger of the Covenant, he speaks about and says that Arabs are not going to believe. So if a soul is born in an Arab body, that soul is like destined to hell unless it doesn't die before the age of 40, of course, yeah? So does this also count for the Arabs after the smoke happens? Like, can we say that, or does this mean until the end of the world, or is it
Hmm.
like, does it have a period?
Yeah, so the Arabs are gonna be annihilated. So I
Oh,
don't,
totally, like every one of them?
yeah, but I mean, like,
Oh, okay.
I don't know how that, like, the people
The
who,
Arab race.
yeah, the Arabs in that area, I guess, but we'll have to see, I guess, how it plays out. But
Mm-hmm.
annihilation is that's why annihilation is, right? It's a collective annihilation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we know that the ones that God wants them to be annihilated, they will be annihilated, right? But the ones that are left behind, um, it's not like they're going to become believers. They're also going to die eventually, but like they're being wiped out, right? As
Mm-hmm.
as um,
Yeah, remember that
believers
guy, brother,
of the Son.
that I thought he was like, maybe he was like posting all my stuff. This was like like several months ago, and then he was like, you I think you had did some more research on him or back checking, and then he was like bragging about his family. I thought he was like maybe one of those Arabs, because he quoted the verse about other Arabs among you, that, and then like we find out uh that he was bragging about his prestigious, was started with a Y or something, like his tribe
Why?
or something. Yeah, yeah, like it was named like after like a Y or something. You had seen another video on this guy, and he was claimed to be a submitter and stuff, but
I don't
he was,
remember.
it was funny. He was like boasting, and then like I didn't really look into him, but like you sent me pictures and you had talked to him, and then and yeah, you had like It was very, very interesting. But yeah, he
Mhm.
was
Mm-hmm.
he was like
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't he was trying. I thought he might have been he was trying, but the things he was saying, like he wasn't. I don't think he was being sincere. He was just because if you look at his other videos, like he was like
Mm-hmm.
bragging about his prestigious upbringings and stuff, like Arab, stuff. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Anyway, it's not a big deal. I just remember that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think, Brother Jafar, you talked about Arabs, and it's
Mhm.
interesting, there's one guy in this Discord group, who claims he's an Arab, and
Okay.
like yeah, and like he says
And he
I'm a
says he's a
submitter, and
submitter?
yeah, he says he's a submitter, so we told him like, well, maybe you don't have like pure Arab blood, and then
Maybe he
how
isn't the
these
submitter.
no, but then yeah, but then like how the Arabs are so prejudiced and like racist and stuff
Uh, yeah.
about and proud of their race, He's like, no, no, I'm pure Arab. My parents are.
Okay. But
Yeah,
he
but
Like,
said
then
he
they have
believes in
like
the
when you dig
messenger,
deeper, huh? Yeah,
but
yeah,
he says he's a submitter.
yeah, yeah.
So he
But
accepts that the messenger said that Arabs are not going to believe. How can he be a submitter while the messenger clearly said Arabs are not going to believe? And he is an Arab. So he can't accept both, right? Does it make sense? Oh, I don't hear Suleiman anymore.
yeah, me neither. I think maybe his
Oh, okay. Yeah,
audio.
so this Arab guy, he says, I am fully an Arab, but he didn't watch the video where the messenger says, he even like
This,
laughs about it. He said, I don't see any Arab here in the group, he says.
yeah, I don't think we can hear you, brother Suleiman,
Mhm.
if you're speaking right now.
Yeah, I had also a question, maybe until he comes back. It says, as for the early vanguards who immigrated, Muhajirin, and the supporters who gave them
you're
refuge,
right, I got
Ansar.
disconnected.
Okay, we
Okay,
got you back.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Accidentally the app. I was talking to you guys and I was updating the app. Just and I didn't
You
realize that
updated your,
it will
you
disconnect
updated yourself now.
because I killed. Yeah.
You updated version of Suleiman.
Oh, maybe that's what. Yeah, that's what I had. Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah. Wow. Sorry, the cat.
I'm curious to see your updated version, Suleiman.
It's very. Yeah, it's
The
getting
azan,
better.
hey,
You know.
the azan is the same, by the way. You didn't change the azan, so
No, no, the is the same,
that's not
but
updated.
yeah, no, the just a bunch of other things. Yeah, and also the translations uh, are gonna be there for all the
Inshallah.
languages, God willing. So
Inshallah.
there's gonna be 38, mashallah, 38 additional languages to English. Well, the most, including which include the most widely spoken languages in the world. Like the 30 or
Mandarin.
so most widely spoken languages in the world. Yeah,
Mandarin.
including Mandarin. Yeah,
Oh, mashallah. Include Mandarin.
yeah, Mandarin, like bunch of them. Like, so if I want to tell you, let me pull up the languages. I also included a few other languages that nobody knows about, but
That's very
mostly
cool.
it's like.
I like it.
Why? Why did you do that?
No, I mean like regional
Okay.
languages that I know, for example, like
Yeah, so
from
no one has an
Pakistan.
excuse, No one
Yeah,
has an
yeah.
Right,
excuse.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So mashallah, we have like Arabic, Bengali, Mandarin Chinese, Czech, Dutch, English, Farsi,
Kurdish?
French, German, Hebrew, Hindi, Hungarian, Indonesian, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Pashto, Punjabi, Polish, Portuguese,
Mm.
Romanian, Russian, Spanish, Svenska, Swahili, Tamil, Thai, Turkish, Ukrainian, Urdu, and Vietnamese.
Hmm. The
Also,
Kurdish will
Not
have an
not
excuse now.
Kur-
They will have an
yeah,
excuse now, brother.
I can the
And it's
Kurdish
your
too.
fault.
Yeah. No, no, they can. Yeah, yeah, Kurdish should be there too. God willing. I mean,
Yeah,
now
they should
I've
speak
done it in a
Turkish too.
way.
So
Yeah, yeah. I've done it in a way that we don't have to like even publish a new update for additional languages. Like I can add languages and I don't have to go to the App Store release to enable them. So inshallah we can
oh, that's
have add as many languages, yeah.
yeah.
And I've done them in a way like that, we can fix them too, like they're local, they're stored in a place. It's not like they're just dynamically being done. So they're stored somewhere. And so if we want to change them, if we want to improve them, like let's say you can work on the uh, Dutch version. If you see mistakes in there, you want to improve on that. You I can make arrangements for you to be able to update it and things like that. Likewise, if
Mhm,
someone else knows a different language and they think that AI, which AI, does a very good job, by the way, like now, it's not
mhm,
like how generated translations were before machine generated translations. I mean, they're
Uh-huh.
very, very high
It's
standard now,
there. It is. And I know it
Hmm.
because like I've used Google Translate out here in West Texas, like when dealing with Hispanics and stuff,
Hmm.
and that was like in 2023. But with ChatGPT now and before, I've gotten pretty good where I can
Hmm.
request food at these food trucks or these places.
Hmm.
The GBT stuff it gives me is very accurate, and I even will
Yeah.
talk to somebody who's very fluent in both. He says, "Yeah, that's like near
Hmm.
perfect Spanish." Where in the
Hmm.
past, I've actually like when I deal with like contractors, people from different companies doing work on location using Google Translate, it was like some of it was understood. I say most of it, but wasn't good, like you're saying. So that's just
Hmm.
yeah, my also really
Hmm.
agree.
No,
Maybe,
so yeah. Yeah, so
yeah,
we can add Kurdish, and if there are other suggestions, for languages that anybody has, let me know.
you have
It'll take like a
Japanese.
day or two to add a language, a whole language for the app as well as for the Quran itself.
Yeah, you have Japanese.
yeah, mashallah. Brother, I had another
Mm.
question about
Uh-huh.
verse 100.
Mm-hmm.
It says, as for the early vanguards who immigrated, the Muhajirin and the supporters who gave them
Mm-hmm.
refuge, the Ansar and those who follow them in righteousness, God is pleased with them and they are pleased with Him. So these people, they
Mm-hmm.
were receiving this revelation while they were alive. So while they were alive, they hear from God that He has prepared for them gardens with flowing streams wherein they abide forever. Like this is because there's this other verse where God says that angels will come to them and tell them that they are going to heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something similar that where God says that these people there is heaven prepared for them with flowing streams.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same thing, like, or is this like a general information that God gives to the people who are striving in the cause of God, or is it specifically because God mentions, He says, the Muhajirin, the Ansar, and those who
Mm-hmm.
followed them in righteousness. God says God is pleased with them. So you receive this confirmation while you're alive.
Mm-hmm.
You're not dead yet. You already
Mm-hmm.
received the confirmation from directly from God that
Mm-hmm.
like you're gonna make it to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So is it specifically for these people? Because that's what I understand. Or
Mm-hmm.
is it also like a generous thing? Like, okay, the ones who are righteous and strive in the cause of God, God will forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
But this is throughout the whole Quran already. Like the whole message of the Quran is that if
Mm-hmm.
you follow the commandments, you're eventually gonna end up in heaven. But that doesn't mean that I am gonna make it to heaven because of that information. But when God sends specific information about a specific group of people, after certain things have happened, they they could say at that point they could say that they will make it to heaven, right? Or can't they?
Hmm. Yeah, this is, by the way, my updated version. You're talking about my updated version. But yeah, so so
SubhanAllah.
going back to your question, Masala, I think that it's an example for people, right? So if a situation like that happened and there were people like that, then it would apply to them too. But specifically in this example, these verses are talking about these particular people at the time of Muhammad, right? But God is also
Mhm.
teaching us through these people that how the believers are, and and how God will treat these people and what their destiny will be, right? Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so for example, in 117, it says God has redeemed the prophet and the immigrants, the Muhajirin, and the
Mm-hmm,
supporters who hosted them and gave them refuge, and
mm-hmm,
Ansar who followed him during the difficult times. That is
mm-hmm.
when the hearts of some of them almost wavered, but he has redeemed them, for his compassion is toward the most merciful. So that God is actually specifically talking about the Muhajirin and the Ansar, because the
Yeah,
Muhajirin, they were the immigrants because they were forced to leave, right? They didn't give up. They were forced to leave, and the Ansar who helped them in the most difficult times.
yeah,
And of course, this is an example for us. I understand that. But
right.
in this verse, when like imagine you are there and you are one of the Muhajirin or you're one of the Ansar,
Mm-hmm.
what which God talks about, could like I would assume they could say after receiving such a revelation that the paradise is preserved for them.
Yeah, but they don't know if they are, if if they are included in that. For example, like there, of course, there's Muhajirin and there's the Ansar, but then there's also hypocrites among them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but the hypocrites didn't go to war. Remember, they had these excuses, and you're one of them who didn't give excuse. You were eager to fight. You went
Mm-hmm.
there. You fight. You came back.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even while you were there, you received revelations about the hypocrites, and yeah. So, like, I assume then these people would, and that they have this some certainty, like
Well, of
some
course, I
certainty
mean,
because they have
look.
proved.
It's better to be
Mm-hmm.
on
So
like go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
My understanding is like I think it's much safer and better for our souls. Like we don't have like uh, I mean we constantly worry about the hour. Like we don't even if that's the case for these people. We don't know that or like wanna think that, oh yeah, I'm going to heaven, because then you would end up not. I mean, we don't want to be like that in the first place, but I mean, it's the most serious thing ever, like to even think, the day of judgment, and not to err or err, I think is the word, on anything that can
Mm-hmm.
maybe make us like lackadaisical, or like like, because that's so dangerous. And but like the other verses, just taking like I said, my understanding, like thinking about these things as a whole,
But if you're
like
but if you're destined for heaven, you're not going to stop praying or you're not going to stop fighting in the cause of God. You may be even gonna do more. Like you understand, like when you are in a certain situation where you see that you become successful, like you want to be more successful, right? Like then you end up doing like more and more and more instead of
right, but I
that
don't think
is
there's
like
any way for you to know, like Abraham, if we could look at Abraham, or even, even like other examples, I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, we might, like, how the messenger says, like, after passing our mixing
Because
test,
you
but
enjoy
also we could
it.
step out of God's kingdom, and then, I mean, like, we want to be extremely careful, very careful,
Yeah,
and we
but
can still be happy too, but
yeah, but
I'm
you
sorry.
also enjoy it. Don't forget,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
so that is maybe one of the most joyful thing for a person to do while he's still alive. Like why should you stop having these joyful moments praying and striving in the cause. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember there is this verse where
Of course, yeah.
a
I agree.
certain group of people, they were, please correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, but the people, they were thinking about the moments when it was the most difficult for them, but they were steadfast, and they kept it, and that was the moment when it was really, they were really enjoying it while it was very difficult, because they knew they were with
Yeah.
God,
So
and they were.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
Brother Jaffer, imagine you find out that you're going to heaven, right?
Yes.
So imagine, right? I'm just saying, let's just imagine. God willing, you will.
I wish.
Let's hope,
Inshallah, yeah.
So,
Inshallah.
and all of us do, God willing. Let's hope, we all hope for all of us.
Inshallah. All of us.
But
Yes.
the thing is that it's just, it's just like a, it's just like a very personal thing between you and God. So the thing is, like, for example,
Mm.
for a believer, God says in the Quran that, angels descend upon the believers, right? Gives them the good news, let's say in a dream or something. So maybe they
Mhm.
know, maybe they know in their heart that they're going to heaven. But it still
Mhm.
doesn't. But it's not. It's still like until it happens. Like you don't actually
Mm.
believe it. Like imagine even if you're like, let's say, let's take the example that the messenger gives of someone going to Hawaii, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and and if I tell you, Brother Jaffer, tomorrow you're going to Hawaii, like you're still not actually gonna believe it until you're actually there. It's still gonna feel like that,
Mm.
right? But
Mm.
still, then like that's not gonna change anything for this person. If he's truly a believer, he's
Mhm.
really he's gonna stay that way. But those are the people I think that God lets them know, right? Because right,
Mhm.
because if someone's a person, for example, if you tell them, hey, you're going to heaven, and then they're just gonna
Then
give
it
up,
doesn't make sense.
then they're
It
not even
doesn't make
gonna go to
sense.
heaven in the first place.
Then he wished they didn't tell him.
Yeah, but that person's not even gonna go to heaven. You know that, right? But there
Mm.
are people,
Okay.
for
Okay.
example, that are under the impression that they are going to heaven, like they are so righteous and stuff too.
Mhm.
So,
Without
so I mean, it
certainty, though.
doesn't. Yeah. So I mean, it's not something. I don't know. Like I mean, it's something that it's up to God. Like if God wants to let someone know, He lets them know. Like in this case, He put it in the Quran, and the people who read it, I mean, they knew who they were, and God knew who they were, right? And but then
Mhm.
also, God talks about some people that God says that you don't know them, God knows them, right? Like about hypocrites and stuff. So there could be, some cases like
Mm.
that in among these people too. So,
Mhm.
but the all these people, if they're really believers, among the Muhajirin and the Ansar, then uh, and God knows them, right? Then obviously, if they know that nothing's going to change it, like you said, they're still going to strive
Mhm.
and still going to reverence God because they are the ones that because God knows that about them, and God knows that they're still going to stay on that path. That's why they're going to heaven in the first place. So,
Mhm.
but but the reason why we talk about, this thing, and we talk about it more along the lines of people who feel entitled that they're already going to heaven just because they call themselves submitters, and they do their contact prayers, salat, and they talk as if they're already going on. We're not talking about people that, angels come at night and give them the good news, or God talks about them specifically in the Quran. We're talking about just anybody who becomes a submitter and then starts having the sense of entitlement, comparing themselves to the average person outside, and thinks he's so much better, he's like so saintly that he's going to heaven, and all these other people are so uh, you know so worse off, and he or she develops a kind of arrogance about them, and looks
Mhm.
down on other people and thinks they're better than them. So that's the kind of thing that as submitters, like, we don't want, right? But for someone
Mhm.
who's a believer and God lets them know, that's good for them. I mean, that's good. That applies to any person who's a believer, right? They open the Quran, God says God gives them good news of gardens with flowing streams. But how do I know personally that I am one of them? If God wants me to know, for example, He will let me know. But if He does let me know, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna go and like tell the whole world, "Hey, God told me, look, I'm going to heaven." Like what the people did really with the people of the companions, right? Of Prophet, like
Mhm.
they said God told them they're going to heaven in the Quran, so they put the name, they put next to their name that God is pleased with them and they're pleased with Him. Like they say in Arabic,
Ah,
radiyallahu
radiallahu anhum.
ta'ala, no, you know.
Mhm.
So, but we know some of them were not believers in the first place. Like um, these people, a lot of them, like knowing history. So,
Mhm. Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
there are
another just
certain things, that you need to see
you
and
know,
God knows.
uh, mashallah, I really like this one and listening to it too. Um, from the recitation, but it says, "Believers mindful of the day of judgment." That's the subtitle. Challenging are those who do not believe in it. As for those who believe in it, they are concerned about it, and they know that is the truth. So, um, and there's also um, even the idols that they implore are seeking ways, means towards their Lord. They pray for His mercy and fear His retribution. Um, which surely yeah, because like even my understanding, the right, it says the righteous idols worship God alone. So I mean, this is Jesus, right, or Muhammad and these other people
mm,
that they pray for His mercy and fear His retribution, because that's the title. It says the righteous idols worship God alone. That's what
yeah.
Jesus taught the Christians, and they fear. I mean, even too, if you look in the Bible and stuff, and the way in the gospel in Injil, I mean, he was very like concerned and stuff. He wasn't uh, you know Jesus. Like he was and that's how he like and not that it like stresses, like makes you anxious or anything, but it uh it gives you uh it helps you to
Mm-hmm.
do like gives you like a comforting reassurance, like that the hereafter is all you should be working towards, and you're not worried
Mm-hmm.
about, and not to be distracted, and it's like very freeing, and it's comforting to fear God, reverence Him, and not take His requital for granted or lightly, and because it helps you, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's like that, it's
Mm.
gonna you know
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And the thing is that like it's like, let's say you're having an exam tomorrow, right? Uh, but it's not like even like that, right? We are actually, the exam is happening, right? That is the exam. And the day of judgment is just a result of it, right?
mm,
But anybody who's really going to pass or with flying colors is is taking the exam very seriously, right? And it's because they're taking it very seriously and they're going to keep it that way, is how they're going to pass in the first place, you know? So, but people who become complacent and arrogant and stuff like that, they're not gonna be among those people anyways, right?
Yeah, they think like the test is easy. Like I was just
Mm-hmm.
telling you, what was it, 2 nights ago? The conversation I was having, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, he's not a submitter, but yeah, he was just saying, he was like,
Yeah.
when I think about heaven, I think it's really easy to get into, and I'm just like, guys, I'm just on the
That's
phone.
why
Like,
you don't take someone who's drunk, you don't take them seriously. I really normally, I wouldn't even bother to talk to them because,
yeah, I didn't
no.
find out. Like I started piecing together, like
They'll
after.
probably not remember the conversation when they're
No,
when they're sober.
No, I think a
Yeah.
little while
Mhm.
into it, but afterwards, I'm like, well, yeah, he kind of, he told me, and then that he had, had a few to drink, and I'm like, oh, okay, but like as time went on, I'm like, yeah, he really is, But yeah, I was like trying to like do my part, and and some.
Hmm.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're
You
right.
want
Like
them to remember the conversation also. If they can't, if they're in a state where they're not even going to remember the conversation,
yeah,
then you're probably
yeah,
just wasting your time with them. I mean, God willing, you still get your credit for talking to him, but he's not going to remember most of what you said. I mean, because obviously, when God talks about intoxicants, he talks about
hmm
people forgetting God,
yeah.
So, you know,
Very true.
and they make things say nonsense like
Yeah, like he even
when
said,
they
he
don't.
said, you know what? I feel like I'm a submitter after win this conversation. you
Yeah,
know,
definitely acting like one.
it's like, yeah. I mean, yeah. The thing is just searching.
Like,
Mm.
yeah.
It's one of those things where it's just
Hmm.
like the messenger. I mean, the Quran says, like people not feeding the souls, and they're like trying all these things, even if they make good money and have their family, it's not fulfilling, you know. And so it's just
Hmm.
yeah, so many. Not that we don't know this, but like it's yeah. uh, But yeah, God willing, like you had said, I should. The conversation would be better had whenever they're of sober and of sound mind. That way they could understand uh, these things and like think of or remember them.
Brother Sim, was there a reason why you called this guy who came to the group a submitter? Like you wanna, like, do we call it the, what is it? The the doubt? What was it?
Oh, you give them the benefit
The,
of the doubt.
yeah, the benefit of the doubt. Like, was that the reason? Because I could. Oh, but we are live.
Brother, yeah, I want to say about your previous question, the Arabs. I think you are still, yeah. So my understanding is, uh, so if there is any people real Arab, I think if they are saying some meter for some reason, maybe they'll be ending up hypocrite when you see if this is the real Arab, because God will not guide them, it's obviously, because of, God, messenger of covenant, he explained the Quran. Actually, this is not his personal opinion that they will not get the, I mean, the guidance, because those people, so though they are the one, will be blamed, you know, they are not following the Quran anymore, because even though they speak in Arabic, so this they will be the, first, God will blame them. So, and also, before any retribution, God always send the messenger. So God sent the messenger, and they did not believe him. They supposed to believe in the first place. So this obviously the retribution will come today or tomorrow. So this is the explanation of the Quran, not his personal opinion. So that's my understanding. Even though if any real Arab blood, so ending up, you see, 1997, you read this verse. The Arabs are the worst in disbelief and hypocrisy. So maybe those people will claim like submitter. If the person is real Arab, so you see, he will be a hypocrite. That's my understanding.
Mm.
Suleiman said, "Sorry, you got disconnected." Can y'all hear Brother Suleiman? Brother Jaffer?
No, I don't hear him.
I think I don't. I think the connection, Brother Suleiman. I don't think we can hear you. Might be the connection if he's talking.
You guys able to know?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh,
Most-
sorry. We got disconnected. So, are there any other comments from anyone? Any questions? All right. So I guess if there are no comments or questions, we can conclude the study. Thank you, Brother Jaffer, for leading the study, and thank you everyone for joining us. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you.